Welcome to the SecAsh Show, and today we bring you our first remote podcast. We've got a very special person here with us today. We've got Bill Clarkson-Antill, aka Bill. Bill's a Microsoft MVP, and we're going to talk about that in quite a bit of detail. Bill has over 15 years of experience working across New Zealand agencies and specializes with the Microsoft security stack. So we're going to learn a little bit of that from Bill today. And looking forward to this episode because it's been a while since we've created one. And today is going to be our first remote one. So we're going to do some screen sharing. We're going to learn some stuff. And I'm really excited today. Bill, really happy that you're here today. It means a lot. And tell us about yourself, mate. How did you get into security? How's the journey been? And then we can talk about more stuff.
No, it's good to be here. God, where to begin? It's a really broad question for me. So I started down south in Christchurch in New Zealand. In 15-year journey and experience, you sort of do a lot of things along the way. So I started, I guess like most people in the industry, I started in desktop engineering. So I kind of progressed through my career, I guess originally as a desktop engineer with the aspirations to become an infrastructure or system architect down the road. So I started down south in Christchurch, back in the early 2000s now. I sort of left school early. I didn't really have a plan, and I kind of just pushed into IT, which is something I've been doing since I was a kid, really. Started with sort of Windows NT or, DOS version 5, Windows 3.11, for people that remember those operating systems, a little bit of Linux in there as well. So sort of started down south working various desktop roles. I sort of landed my first systems engineering gig at a company called Verizon Connect that specialize in telematics. So the same Verizon in the US, really big multinational conglomerate. And I sort of cut my teeth in the security space with their in their space using CrowdStrike, funnily enough, working with some very talented people down there. So kind of cut my teeth down there and then moved from Christchurch to Wellington, where I started a small company called Liverton Security. So I did email, sort of like CMail SmartGate for the people that know those solutions. Played with that for a year and then landed in the security team at ACC and sort of climbed rapidly, sort of like a SOC setting, almost like a specialist space, and then just started learning the Microsoft security stack at that point in a really big way. Grew out there, got promoted to senior, and then decided to go contracting because obviously consultants and there's a huge shortage in the security space. You sort of get exposure to large projects, and sort of landed at Health NZ as the SIEM architect, working with some brilliantly talented guys over there. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I've come back to ACC to help build out more of their security sort of apparatus. So I guess my journey's been very irregular. I sort of fell into the security industry. The opportunity kind of presented itself. And then, I just kind of, delve headfirst into it.
And that's the case with a lot of people that I've met, even myself, like accidental entry into security, and then you see these whole realm of opportunities come up, and you're like, okay, yeah, that sounds interesting, and then you literally go for it, and then it kind of changes your life.
100% right. Like compared to like systems engineering, desktop engineering, cloud and platform. Like this sort of cybersecurity, I guess, cuts across all of it. There's no one space it doesn't really touch, from data to platform to people. It's all essentially covers all facets of IT. From the business side all the way to applications, technology, and everything else in between. So yeah, like my journey's been unique. I guess everyone's is unique. Enjoying it. I have no regrets with where I've landed. So I hope many more years of continuing success.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good to know because, as you said, everyone's journeys are unique in their way. And it's always great to hear those stories around how a person actually ended up where they are currently. With Microsoft, obviously household name now, pretty much all, most of us remember our first computers being Microsoft. And since Office 365 became such a big thing, pretty much as like everyone knows about Microsoft. Microsoft security stack, again, very, very common across organizations worldwide as well. Let's start by talking a little bit about, the Microsoft MVP program, because I'm pretty sure it is something very unique and very special to get that honor from Big MS themselves. So Bill, talk to us a little bit about what is the MVP program and your journey on becoming a Microsoft MVP and what it entails.
So my journey into the MVP program started when I joined Health. But I was getting enough exposure from the Microsoft side of things, and joining, to get into the MVP program, you sort of have to start having conversations with Microsoft directly.
And sorry, just for the context of our viewers here, what does MVP stand for?
Most valuable professional. So there's about 3,000 of us globally, and it's sort of cut up by country. So based on the population of a country and the work that you've done, the community space, you get promoted to be an MVP based on, what you contribute, how you help others, and what you do essentially across everything to promote, and also enrich the Microsoft community. So I guess to get started, if people do want to go for it, you have to build your own community. So it's no small order. I have my own blog series that I run. I appear on podcasts and webcasts, things like that, YouTube channels. You have to promote yourself, promote the products, and essentially Microsoft, the cybersecurity or whatever particular technology, Microsoft technology that you're promoting out to the community.
And it doesn't have to be specific to security, right? It could be anything else. Yeah.
No, there's I believe there's around 40 different spaces for MVP, so you don't have to be a cybersecurity professional at all. You could be someone who specializes in Intune or infrastructure or cloud or Azure or data or database or dev, DevOps, anything like that. It's endless, to be honest. The way I got started was I joined the Microsoft Private Preview program, and you go through and you sort of start talking to Microsoft directly. So you'll find products, sort of the product space in there, and you can talk to them and see some of the preview features that are coming up. You do have to sign NDA and all the rest of it, so I can't talk too much about it. But, it's very much based on, which organization you work for and if you have a Microsoft agreement with them. New Zealand government customers, pretty much all government departments will have that. So if you're working with a government department, you will likely be under that NDA. But even, you don't have to be working for, New Zealand customer. If you're working for a private firm that has a Microsoft agreement, and you want to try out some of the preview features, not even to even become an MVP, there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can see in there that not a lot of people can get access to. And it's, I highly recommend it to anyone who's wanting to kind of bridge out and kind of increase their knowledge of the stack and upcoming features and bits and pieces like that. You also meet some really, really clever people in there who have done a lot of work in that space, as well as MVPs and other people that have done work in the Microsoft security, across the security stack. So that's kind of how I started. I kind of went through, I spent a lot of time. I spent about 2 years in there. There was a point where I was getting up at 3 a.m. going to Microsoft, Microsoft phone calls and bits and pieces that they have in the US, chatting to them. And then I started writing a blog as well and started promoting sort of my knowledge and trying to share my knowledge as much as I can when I have time, out to everyone that wants to read it. So
absolutely, and we'll attach that in our description as well for all our viewers to go and have a look as well, because I think it's really valuable work, not only to us security professionals, but for people wanting to sort of go and read about the security stack, and from the perspective of someone who can probably explain it in a way that a lot of people will understand, so that it makes sense for them, answering those questions which typically come up in when you're trying to purchase specific products, and you're thinking between two products. One of them is Microsoft, and you're like, should we actually go for this one?
Yeah.
What are the pros and
100%.
cons? So I think those sort of questions, like people like yourself, that's the value that you bring to the community. And I'm, again, really glad that we came across and agreed to do this podcast again. So sorry, I'll let you go on.
Yeah, no, that's fine, mate. Yeah, like for anyone wanting to get into the MVP program, spend some time in there, build something that you can maintain. Like, it doesn't even have to be a blog. For me, that's the best medium I can get out there to promote. But you could contribute to the community through GitHub. You could contribute to the Microsoft Docs page. Like, everything is open source with Microsoft. So there are avenues to where you can update their own documentation, the content, make product suggestions. All of that contributes. And then eventually you can, to get recommended into, or to access and get into the MVP program, you just contact another MVP, and what they'll do is they will recommend you, and then you'll start the process. So for me, it took 6 months, assessment of 6 months, and then you gain access to that community, which has a huge amount of, it's even more content, and more, you get discounts and bits and pieces like that with the MVP program. There's endless items that you sort of get showered with when you become an MVP. So a lot of conference tickets and a lot of access to bits and pieces.
Really handy, yeah.
That no one else traditionally gets. So, anyone that's wanting to kind of bridge that, I'm happy to help.
So for our aspiring MVPs, you see Mr. Bill here. You can contact him for referrals. Obviously, you have to sort of do some groundwork prior to that. It could be a podcast, it could be blog posts, it could be videos or GitHub, anything like that. Again, we'll link some reference links down in the description from the official Microsoft documentation, and then you can have a read. Bill, so you said you specialize in the Microsoft security stack. New Zealand's quite dependent in terms of its Microsoft security stack use, along with other MS products. So do you want to give us a bit of an overview of some of the things you play with, in namely Microsoft Defender suite of products, and then you have Sentinel, because I think they're pretty popular, and some organizations are probably still looking to invest in Sentinel. But I guess for them, it'll be highly valuable if they're watching this podcast as to why they should go for it, some of the features around, Defender and Sentinel. Again, feel free to share some content on the screen, which is why we're having this remote podcast. We couldn't have done this face-to-face. Yes, over to you, Bill. Take over.
So I guess I'll start with, where the stacks come from and where it's currently going. So I guess there's two real products that are, as it stands now. It'll probably change in the future as products become closer and closer together. But you have Microsoft XDR and Microsoft SIEM or Sentinel. So at the moment, those two products are kind of separated out, but I guess the Microsoft Defender stack, we'll start with that. In the past has been separated out into the different domains that security, that a security team would protect: identity, infrastructure, cloud, data, etc., etc. So the features, the old language was Microsoft Defender for Identity, Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Microsoft Defender for Office 365. And there's some other new Defender suites that are coming out. So Microsoft Defender for, Microsoft Copilot, which is obviously the new one. You got Defender for CSPM, which is kind of an inbuilt product into Defender for Cloud. Defender for Cloud has sort of several different Microsoft, sort of like mini Microsoft Defenders within it. They are called plans. Technically, under the hood, I'd almost say they are a separate product, but they're part of the Defender for Cloud ecosystem. Altogether, they form the XDR ecosystem, Microsoft Defender XDR. So in the past, these products have traditionally been the same. Microsoft's bringing them together in a really big way to create a single pane of glass view for your entire security infrastructure, per se, and they're building that out quite aggressively. So over the past, I'd say 5 years, they've been acquiring businesses and other specialist security tooling or platforms and merging it into and becoming, part of the Microsoft family. Microsoft Defender for threat intelligence, that's one of the newer ones. CSPM hasn't been around that long, and AI, that's making quite an impact at the moment. So all of these are converging into one, pane of glass view rather than separate portals, and each play a part in defending, in integrating and defending your environment. So Defender for Endpoint's the most common one. So it's an EDR solution.
Sorry, just for the context of our viewers, do you want to, provide a little bit of, explain what's the difference between, say, like a next-gen AV, an EDR, XDR, and then MDR? Because these are, again, some of the OPSEC terms that we keep hearing about them, but thinking about our target audience, they would probably want to know what it is, which is useful for what, and then we can go from there.
We'll start with EDR. So EDR, so endpoint detection and response. An EDR solution, I guess, in its most basic form is, it monitors endpoints, and it's for managing and responding to anything that you may detect on a server or a workstation. So typically driven by an agent, some kind of lightweight agent, and you deploy this out through your environment to detect any kind of miscellaneous behavior. So that's essentially, in a nutshell, what EDR is and kind of a product example. Then you've got managed detection and response, so MDR. So this is more about eyes on glass than anything else. MDR is, I guess, more the human side. It can be a managed service, or it can be in-house. It's essentially infosec analysts that will manage and respond to alerts and behaviors that they see across the Microsoft stack. It could be anything. It could be CrowdStrike. Could be another solution. Traditionally companies, they'll have either their own team, or they'll bring in a third party like Bastion, or another service, CyberCX, that'll manage that particular service. And then you have XDR, which is extended detection and response, which is kind of everything really under one roof. So cloud workloads, application suites, user vulnerability management, all in one place. So it's more like an integrated view of all the kind of different security domains in one product view. So those are the differerences and the way that's kind of split up within Defender. EDR is, you have other acronyms like CSPM, so Cloud Security Posture Management. So that's another product type where it looks at, sort of your security boundary and your cloud posture management of your cloud platforms. You can integrate and you sort of get a detailed viewpoint of, how your posture management looks. Is everything secure? What entry points could a threat actor, use? Sort of like a attack, path analysis, things like that. So those are kind of the main ones that I can really think of at present. There are more. There's always an endless amount of acronyms for cybersecurity. They're always inventing new ones, but I guess those would be the main ones at the moment. So the main three ones, EDR, MDR, and XDR, they equate to three different kind of areas of your environment. And then you got even further to that, you got SIEM, so security information event monitoring. So it's essentially investigation, collecting logs, and analyzing for patterns of attack. That's another avenue as well.
So, Bill, this has been a question that has a lot of people have probably asked me, and may have asked you as well in the past. But there's that want and the need to know that we have Defender Plan 1, which is next gen AV, or any other malware protection solution that they've got in place. Their question is, why should we invest in an EDR? What's the difference between, malware protection like AV or next gen AV and EDR? What more can we get? So can you elaborate on why, what an EDR does better than a traditional AV?
So a traditional AV, I guess in the past you've had an agent that you've deployed out into your workstation and you receive antivirus signature updates, and they get pushed out to that platform and to those endpoints. And in a nutshell, that's pretty much what a traditional sort of EDR solution is. It's very basic. Detects only what it knows about. So the next gen AV, so this is where it kind of, the capability of EDR kind of lifts up and then sort of to the right a little bit. So the next gen AV continuously receives updates passively. It'll inspect your cloud protection. It'll have MITRE ATT&CK patterning built into it. So it'll detect multiple points of attack on a workstation and multiple vectors based on the MITRE ATT&CK framework. It'll continuously monitor regardless. It'll block. It'll inspect network traffic. There's attack surface capability that it's also built in. Next gen is definitely something I would recommend to people out there who are considering just between a traditional AV solution and sort of the next gen AV, or from an EDR to a next gen AV solution. This is where a lot of the security technologies are going. Microsoft, CrowdStrike, etc., etc. Just because.
So you're saying they should probably transition away from a traditional AV into a next gen AV, but what about an EDR?
Yeah, I definitely recommend them transitioning to next gen. EDR, I mean, it's I guess it's an older acronym. It focuses on monitoring and more, it's essentially just monitoring and securing endpoints more than anything. I'm using sensors across your environment. I guess, from an old traditional AV solution or EDR solution, it's very basic and it requires human interaction rather than next gen, where next gen has machine learning and AI built into it, which is, faster response than what a human can do. Humans miss things. If you actually build patterns into the security products, they don't miss it. So that's kind of where the world's kind of shifting to. And I definitely recommend sort of going down that road. It will better protect your environment from the more and more advanced attacks that are being seen around the world, because the hackers are not going away. Threat actors are not, they're here to stay. So it's about getting ahead of them, and next gen is definitely the better way to go. There are, there's several companies out there that do good next gen AV solutions. Microsoft obviously is one, but even CrowdStrike, unfortunately, with their recent taken a bit of a hit in the industry, but their product still, for the longest time has still been one of the best. Even now, I wouldn't deter away from them. They definitely do need to fix a few things, but yeah, 100%. Look at next gen. It doesn't even have to be either of those. There's plenty of others out there.
Sounds good. So, Bill, if you can show us your home lab setup, if you can show us some of the things you play around with, the portal and some of the features, some of the cool stuff, and then, just walk us through the security stack, mate, and then tell us more about how it works.
Yeah. No, so this is Microsoft Defender. I guess this is XDR. This is what it's become now. Back in the old days, there were half the tiles that were, that are available now. They're integrating everything into. This is the end product. They're very much integrating everything into a single pane of glass view for security. So you've got exposure management, which is one of the new tools that have come out. Exposure management has definitely got a massive role to play for the future. I'll leave that one to the end because it kind of ties everything together. This is where typically EDR and MDR kind of meet with incidents and alerts. There won't be anything in here because haven't onboarded anything into this portal, but this is typically where you would see everything. There's hunting, there's submission centers for any activity that you may see out in your environment. There's also partner technologies in here. Threat intelligence. So threat intelligence plays a really big role in any security, SOC. With AI coming into the space, it's definitely going to be more interesting in the future. So threat intelligence in a nutshell is the collection and profiling of threat actors. And then there's a lot of information that you collect. You collect IOCs, you collect their previous attacks, what they've done, patterning. There's digital forensics information that's collated into it in some respects, from social media posts to everything that, their entire behavior. So you think of it like a criminal profiling system, really. And threat intelligence is shared between, organizations globally. Like there's platforms like Recorded Future, MISP, Microsoft Defender for threat intelligence. There's sort of endless products out there. Threat intelligence is only as good as its data. And within a SOC setting, it's used for profiling threat actors, ingesting data into your SIEM, and enriching your XDR solution or EDR solution, or next gen AV, I should say. You take that information, you can essentially model it to what you need to see from a threat actor perspective. So, for example, I may work for IAG, an insurance company. So you'll be able to model what threat actors have been or have attacked insurance companies in the past. Take that data and then model the information. Usually it's a MITRE attack framework layer that you generate as a gap analysis between the data, and then model it into your SIEM and across your security controls. So you can enhance your defenses against these particular threat actors who may attack you, since they target, traditionally insurance companies. So this is kind of this is the role that threat intelligence plays. It's quite important to get right, because it can dictate your defenses, your alerting, your even down to your cost and how much you spend on security and tooling, purchasing different platforms to defend your environment. So it's a really cool field to get into as well. There's a huge amount of data analytics and information that you can pile through. Where Microsoft Defender for Copilot's playing a huge role in this space within the Microsoft Defender stack. At least I'm starting to see some of the enhancements that Copilot's bringing, where a lot of the threat intelligence capabilities are starting to be automated using AI. So rather than trawling through a 3-day exercise of trying to model threat actors, AI can get there in a fraction of that time. So Copilot's, Microsoft's just brought out a few key modules in that space, like the MITRE attack module, and they've got a massively huge data lake of threat information that they can feed off as well. So threat analytics. This is Microsoft's big write-up for each threat actor that they have detected across the world. So it is a paid service. I don't have access to the full service, but this is essentially a cut-down view of what you get within Microsoft Defender XDR. So in here, there's a complete workup of the different threat actors, different tooling, what they use, what they leverage, where it's been seen out in the wild. So threat actor profile, for example, Star Blizzard. In here will be a complete workup, what tooling they've used to what, TTPs that have been observed that they've utilized in an environment, how they've weaponized certain features, tooling, areas of a network, how they behave, where they like to go first, recent incidents. There's no recent incidents within my environment that show them, but as part of the workup, they'll show where they've gone in the past, and you can even search these guys in other threat intelligence platforms like MISP or Recorded Future, and actually have a look in there. Is there any endpoints exposed in your environment? based on these guys and any recommended actions that get generated from this. This is a more, this is a comprehensive view. You can get more information out of a traditional threat intelligence platform. This has been summarized, nicely for the customer in this space. But you can deep dive further into this as a threat intelligence analyst, or even yourself building your home lab like MISP or OpenCTI are two open source threat intelligence platforms that you can build yourself at home, and you can dive through a lot of this information yourself and actually have a look. So that plays a part. That threat intelligence enriches all the Microsoft security stack, including Azure, Copilot, Sentinel, just about everything. Then you've got assets. So this is devices that have been registered into Defender and Defender XDR. So typically in here you'll have catalogs based on what you've got in your environment. You'll onboard them where they'll fall under the protection of XDR and any kind of network malicious behavior you'll see in here, from IoT devices to those unrecognized, uncategorized devices. For typically in here you'll find network switches, routers, and bits and pieces like that. But there's everything will fall under here, from your servers to your endpoints to mobile phones to just about everything. So under here you have identities. So this is part of the Defender for Cloud apps product set. So they're bringing this as essentially a catalog of identities or users for aligning to different cloud apps that you may have in your environment. And then a new piece that's just been added in recently is cloud infrastructure. I imagine this will be bringing in all the virtual machines and any kind of cloud infrastructure from Azure. It's not available yet, no matter how many times I click on it, but it'll be something that's coming out probably soon from Microsoft. Sentinel. So Sentinel, the SIEM product. A lot of people, I guess, view, sort of SIEM as a swear word to a lot of people. It's definitely, I'll summarize SIEM from where it's come from to where it's where it's landed in the security space now, or Microsoft security. So I guess traditionally in the past with SIEM solutions, you, as a security team, you have a logging platform of some description, and you ingest logs from every corner of your environment. And within those logs, you pattern attacks based on your own scenarios. With the evolution of MITRE ATT&CK, it's kind of become mainstream, and with SIEM and evolution of XDR products as well, SIEM is kind of falling down at the wayside a little bit. A lot of customers and a lot of organizations will still use SIEM in the old way, and just as many logs as you can, but you pay through the nose for little value. Usually there's resource constraints, or there's not a lot of value getting from your logs. So where Microsoft is going with SIEM is it's falling into almost like an investigation platform. You can still ingest logs, but it's very much becoming, Sentinel is very much becoming part of the XDR ecosystem, where it'll become a investigation platform where you'll integrate logging into XDR first, and whatever can't be integrated into XDR will get integrated into Sentinel. So Sentinel is slowly moving that direction, where it'll become like a custom automation, sort of threat intelligence, playbook, machine learning, AI kind of space, where you can look for your custom logs or view your custom logs that can't be integrated into one of the other Defender products, and write your own patterning in there. So 90% of, I'd even possibly say even more than that, 95, 98% of all alerts that you get out of, that you get in Sentinel will probably be generated by Defender. So you don't need to double up on huge amounts of data when you've got Defender, XDR in your environment. A lot of the data consumption will come through XDR into Sentinel, and you can build out your own custom actions and SOAR capability. So security orchestration, automation, response. XDR also has some automated response capability built into it. It's called AIR, so automated incident response. So Sentinel will very much become that custom, I don't know what to do with this log, but we need it. sort of place. And that's kind of where it's moving to. SIEM will always play a part in the security stack. I always believe it will. But with patterning, with MITRE ATT&CK and XDR solutions and AI coming into focus, you can see the trajectory is going to be very much the old ways of SIEM are going to die off. You won't need it, going forward. It'll be for that use case that you need to integrate from somewhere, and it doesn't fit in XDR. That's kind of the evolution of it.
And would you say that's more of a Microsoft trend, or like major companies targeting that?
Yeah, like Microsoft are definitely moving in that direction. CrowdStrike don't really have a SIEM built into their products. They're entirely XDR, and it's all MITRE ATT&CK and sort of patterning in their product. You have Splunk, which is still kind of the old school way, a little bit. You still have to ingest huge amounts of logs through heavy log forwarders or whatever log source you've got there, and then kind of pattern, write patterns into Splunk. Like if that's the direction you're going in, I mean, that's totally fine. It's just you're going to be there's a lot more heavy, it's a lot more work intensive rather than going to like a Microsoft solution where a lot of the heavy lifting's done for you, and a lot of them are, patterning of MITRE ATT&CK and machine learning's been built into the product itself. You can integrate AI into Splunk. It's how much do you want to spend on, machine learning, I should say, not AI. You can bring your own machine learning into Splunk, but how much do you want to spend? Typically, machine learning, quote unquote, you'll get, whatever value you put in, that's how much you'll get out. So if you put in, X number of dollars, that's all you're going to get out of it. So you typically have to have specialized hands as well to crawl through the data that you want to bring out, and you need to have very specific use cases. So if you're dealing with terabytes of information a day, then 100% go down that road. But if you're not, then there's no point. I'd look at something else. So that's Sentinel. I mean, it's appearing in XDR. Going back to the original point, so it is coming closer and closer in the Microsoft security stack. So there's threat management, there's workbooks, it's essentially reporting, you have hunting where you can do threat hunting. Notebooks is the machine learning layer within Sentinel. Threat intelligence, that's where threat intelligence will come in and analyze any IOCs that come into SIEM, will also correlate against whatever logs are in there. And then you've got the MITRE ATT&CK framework as well. Quickly show you Sentinel. So this is the Sentinel portal here. I haven't integrated it into XDR, but you've got your log view. So you can use a language called KQL. So you just run KQL queries. That'll give you essentially query whatever you want in here. It's a very easy language to get to know. Microsoft have a ton of documentation on it and a huge amount of examples. For anyone
KQL
learning,
stands for Custo Query Language, right?
Yeah, correct. Very similar to was it Splunk query language, I believe. I believe Splunk has a similar language, a Splunk search processing language, SPL, sorry. Very similar to that. There's incidents in here, there's workbooks, same as XDR, right? There's some new features going in here like SOC optimization. So Microsoft's adding in sort of how can you improve your SIEM and your SOC, and what things that you should consider by giving you these little detailed suggestions and implementation, implements, other data connectors, or, archive a table, or, et cetera, like improvements in your SIEM. There's the big content hub. So this is becoming more and more community driven. So this is where you can build your own connectors. Microsoft's got Sentinel has a big API that sits in front of it through the Azure Monitor API or the Sentinel API. So in here you can actually write your own connectors to systems that may have not been catalogued or been found in here. And there's hundreds of connectors. If you go to the Microsoft, the security GitHub, that's where you can upload them, and they propagate out to all the Sentinels throughout the world. There's a sort of approval process and a community-based approach with this, and there's just pages and pages and pages of just different connectors and different solutions that you can integrate into your SIEM repositories. So this has been around a little while now. It's still in preview. So this is adding a DevSecOps angle to Sentinel, where you can deploy, especially if you have multiple Sentinels, you can deploy content out to multiple Sentinels all at once. Sentinel's designed where it can work with other Sentinels collaboratively. And with this, you can integrate it into essentially a repository system like GitHub or Azure DevOps or GitLab. Pick one.
And it can be multiple instances of Sentinels within the same organization, or
100%. Yeah, 100%. For example, say I'm a large environment. I have 10 Sentinels across 10 different countries. I want to deploy out the same content to all 10 of them because my threat intelligence capabilities seen a particular, we want to deploy out a particular analytic or a particular automation rule out. I can do that en masse from a click of a button if you set up the repository connector. So you just write some code and go through sort of an approval process in your own organization, and then you can deploy it out to all the Sentinels, almost like it's part of the software, continuous integration, continuous delivery, cycle to improve your security posture. So, this is an exciting feature. I definitely want to see more from Microsoft in this space because essentially codifying your Sentinel where you can deploy it as a big template through Terraform or JSON or any number of other, code languages in Azure. It makes it easy to deploy and easy to tear down. So it improves cost and flexibility with the product as well. Then you got the community. This is just general information about the community and latest updates and bits and pieces, just general information for people, blogs and all kinds of stuff. Workspace manager. So this is where you can manage multiple Sentinels from one place. So typically in here, if you've got 10 Sentinels, 10 different countries around the world, you'd integrate them together, all into one space, set up groups, access, etc., where they can, you may have particular teams within your SOC that look after particular regions of the world or, your organization. You can set that up all in here. This is sort of the old, this is the old data connector view. I imagine this will get replaced with the Content Hub.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would, who don't use Sentinel on a regular basis, would probably remember this page because this is one of probably the first pages that appeared, and this was the way to sort of get data into Sentinel. So it's great to hear that since then Microsoft have moved past and done some great work on.
100%. Yeah. This has become more of a catalog page now than anything else. It's like, what data connectors have I got turned on in my Sentinel, and what's green and what isn't, what's turned on, what's turned off, seeing what data's been brought in. I expect this to kind of go away over time and be integrated into the Content Hub. They could easily do it in there. They may keep this as like a simple summary page, but this, as it stands now, is just a catalog of what you got, what you're consuming, and that's about it. Analytics. So this is all your alerting rules, and there's also anomalies as well. So essentially patterning through MITRE ATT&CK. So there's rule templates that you can turn on. So you can just create rules. For example, there's logic. So this is KQL language. You can set incident settings, alert grouping. You can attach audit SOAR, sort of logic apps within Azure or SOAR responses based on, consistent behavior. And then just create and just defining what it is, and then, hit create and go. And it'll start alerting based on the criteria. Sentinel does have this rule, which has been built in, called Fusion. Now, Fusion is interesting. So it takes all the products, all the alerts from all the products, and is used to pattern threat actors that would jump from one thing to another. So I'm a threat actor, I've jumped from identity into a database, into a VM, into a cloud SaaS solution somewhere, back into another identity somewhere else. So Fusion will detect those malicious behavior based on information types called entity mappings. So Fusion will take entity mappings from all the systems within the Microsoft ecosystem and then pattern out an attack from different environments or different defenders together. And you'll actually, when it does alert, you actually see the different movements of a threat actor through different systems. Very cool to watch. It is all in real time.
Yeah.
If you do see one go off, be worried. But at the same time, it's a way that it's a form of machine learning where Microsoft can keep up with a threat actor moving through. Watch lists is essentially dummy information. Where if you have like a list of IP addresses, usernames, VIP employees, things like that, a static list of users that that doesn't change, you can catalog it in here. And Sentinel, you can use it in your queries, your KQL queries, as a reference for different, query types and different SOAR actions as well. You can call them into logic apps, and there's a lot of things you can do with it. And then you've got automation itself. So automation's sort of almost like two parts. You've got the logic app that you have to create. So you need to do logic app. So you need to know logic app creation, or it's almost like codeless apps is probably the best way to describe them. Where you come in here and you can just build out your app based on a designer, on sections and criteria that you want to build out, and then you can map it into Sentinel using an automation rule based on certain criteria. And then you've got settings. So settings is how much data have I ingested a day? What subscription tier am I on? What am I using? User entity behavior analytics, anomalies, et cetera. Auditing and deleting Sentinel if you don't like it as well. So, I mean, that's pretty much Sentinel in a nutshell. So these are all the pains that are kind of coming into XDR with Sentinel as it merges closer. Then you've got identities. So this is the new Defender for Identity platform. This was very much a separate dashboard back in the past, but it's now come in as a new item in here and integrated into XDR. So Defender for Identity, essentially what the name says on the kit really, protects based on identity, protects your environment from identity-based attacks. So people trying to penetrate your environment and trying to steal identity or use identity information in malicious ways. Defender for Identity will defend your environment from those attacks. So it's a whole heap of information on Defender for Identity. You can set up honey tokens. You can set up sensitive catalogs of servers and machines. You can set up sensitive identities like ADM, ADM accounts or whatever you want to call them, administrative tier accounts. You can sort of tag all of those items within your environment, and Defender for Identity will react to any kind of malicious activity around those accounts that it can see.
Sorry, just to cut you off of there. What are honey tokens?
So honey tokens or honeypots
Right.
are
Yeah.
deception-based technologies.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can
I've heard of honeypots. Yeah, but I'll let you go on for our viewers. Yeah.
Yeah. So honey tokens are essentially tagging user accounts with is essentially a fake user account in your environment. Typically you deploy these user accounts into honeypot environments where, say, a threat actor will penetrate your network and then see a unprotected server, which is a honeypot, and you'll have maybe some fake user accounts on there to see if you can catalog, discover, and profile the threat actor that's penetrated your network, even catching them out. It's a great way to get identifiable information from them so you can enrich the rest of your network against them before they can do any more damage. It also is a great way to, I guess, deter them away from the rest of your network. As an easy target. Typically, honeypots are easy target machines that have a lot of security tooling on them, where you can sort of catch threat actors out. So they're great technology sets to kind of get into. There's a lot of deception tooling out there, like a good open source one is like Teapot, for example. It's got a huge amount. There's a huge open source following for it. Really cool technology. Highly recommend people having a look at it. But yeah, you can do a lot with them. So this is kind of Defender for identity built into XDR. We've got Defender for vulnerability management under endpoints. So there's some other sections in here which I don't have access to because you need to pay for them. But Defender for vulnerability management is essentially, what it says on the tin, really. It's a vulnerability management platform where you can inventory, discover anything that has a Defender sensor, agent, or integration into this. Will catalog vulnerabilities, it'll inventory it, event timeline, recommendations to fixing, patching recommendations, any kind of vulnerability management exercise you'll see in here. Configuration management, so this is all about device configuration. Defender for endpoints, I don't have access to it, but you can kind of see. So this is part of the EDR and next gen AI, AV solution, where you can apply policies and across Linux and Windows machines, your workstations, and your environment, things like that. You've got Office 365. So this is Defender for Office 365. So investigating email-based phishing, spam, and sort of malicious-based email attacks. You can run campaigns in here. You can do review of spam and email that comes in and out, or transits your Microsoft environment. There's Threat Tracker, where you can essentially inspect your email stream for threats. There's the Exchange Admin Center, which is integrated into it, where this is a separate piece, but you can add in, there's reporting, there's mail flow, there's alerting and alert policies that you can integrate into here, all part of the Defender for Office 365. There's email, exchange message trace, and a text simulation training, so you can run fake email phishing attacks or other sort of attack simulation. This is getting better and better over time, so you can run different forms of attacks, fake advertisement based emails to whatever you want, really. Also the policies and rules. And we've got Defender for Cloud Apps. So Defender for Cloud Apps is a product used to protect your environments from, I guess, malicious activity around cloud applications and other SaaS clouds, anything that integrates into your Azure environment. So, example, I've got Salesforce, so I want to limit the number of users that I want to access Salesforce. I want to integrate it into my Defender, though, because I want to see who accesses it, when, how, why, the volume. I also want to protect my environment for any kind of malicious activity from that cloud application or that SaaS application that may come back into our environment because we've got an SSO connection with them. So this will defend against all those kind of cloud-based, integration-based attacks. There's cloud discovery, which essentially you need to set up a big logging, there's a logging infrastructure piece that you have to kind of set up for this. Then you've got the Cloud App Catalog, which will gives you, it's a big catalog of all the applications that you may want to allow or decline in your environment. So you can allow applications, you can decline them, you can tag them as unsanctioned or sanctioned apps. So you can completely control your cloud application layer. So this is essentially a big policy engine to restrict that.
And this will obviously help reduce the risk of, shadow IT in organizations, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. from applications that have terrible risk scores of 1, like whatever this app is. It's made in Germany. You can catalog, you can review, the security controls it has around it. Like it has poor MFA, doesn't support SAML, it doesn't have a trusted certificate, things like that.
And is this list based on Microsoft, basically, just showing up what they've seen out there traditionally, and then pretty much giving it back to their customers that, here you go, here's the list.
Yep.
We'll keep adding to this, and you can...
Yeah, 100% correct. So this is continuously added to, month in, month out. There's some like 5,000 or 6,000 applications in here, and more. There's everything that you could possibly think of in here, and I guess it comes down to you as an organization and a security team. Like, what do you want in your environment? What don't you want in your environment? And you can completely block those applications from even being present in your environment through the policy engine here. So it can definitely reduce your risk from a cloud app perspective, where users can log in to applications that you may not want them accessing in your corporate environment. This is definitely one of those tools that will definitely help. This is getting more. There's a few gotchas with Defender for Cloud Apps, but it is becoming more and more closely aligned with Defender for Endpoint and the rest of the XDR environment. I won't say it's the greatest cloud app security product out there, but with the enhancements that look like it's coming, it's definitely going to play a bigger role in the future. And I'd give it a little bit more time, and this will highly likely be one of the best products that you can purchase on the market. You've got OAuth apps that you can integrate, files, you can enable file monitoring with cloud apps, so anyone that's transferring things that they shouldn't be transferring, you can monitor in here. There's an activity log for user activity, which we can't see because there's nothing there. There's governance, so when you deploy the Defender for Cloud Apps log collector, you can actually see a big governance stream of everyone that's done things in the SaaS and cloud app space. And then you've got all the policies. So there is shadow IT policies that you can add in. There's ransomware activity. There's all kinds of policies in here. And you can create your own and also use ones that have already been pre-built in there. There's also conditional access. So conditional access plays a part in here. In Intra. So Intra and Defender for Cloud Apps has integration. So very much a really big, useful platform where you can protect your endpoints using this product, but also users trying to access SaaS applications from the corporate environment too. So, this is only getting better and better. So exposure management, which is the final piece. So Microsoft looks to be following Gartner's continuous threat exposure management approach, which is essentially unifying all your tooling across your entire environment into a single pane of glass view, which they've done, which they're doing now, and then further increase that with exposure management, which gives you a catalog of each of the different domains, like identities, devices, clouds, and your exposure management across those product sets. So in here, this is brand new. There's still more to come, but it gives exposure management is designed to prioritize your resources and where you need to focus your security the most out of other things, like from vulnerability management to threat actors to any kind of malicious activity. It'll show in here where you need to harness your security capability the most versus least, from endpoint security, IoT, ransomware protection. It's essentially a prioritized catalog, which a lot of businesses I know struggle with. Where do we start? It's usually eat everything or try and just do the most risky, try and resolve the most risky things that we can see first. So with this portal, it's supposed to identify your environment context, and then it'll tell you what needs the most effort, and that's where you should prioritize your resources first. And it'll give you a breakdown of metrics, what needs to be done, what's missing, recommendations, everything to enhance your security. So this will replace Secure Score as we know it later down the road. Secure Score is sort of a number at the moment where it tells you, here's a list of recommendations that Microsoft recommends. This is what the fixes that you should add in based on what we think. With this, it provides a more environment-based context. These are the recommendations that you should implement based on the things that we can see and based on the products that have been integrated. So this ties everything together with XDR and your wider Azure ecosystem as well. So as this becomes built out more and more, like this will be the place to, the place to go where you can assign, your resources the most effectively. I mean, it's got metrics in here, it's got recommendations. It tells you virtual machines are not backed up. It needs attention. There's three items affected. So it's still got the secure score elements to it, but there's also a weighting here as well based on your environment. So there's recommendations in here. Things that are compliant versus not compliant. There's different events as well. So zero trust based off security metrics and recommendations. What are you missing to meet this? You've got the secure.
This sort of information would heavily drive decision making.
100%.
What sort of investments that you need to make in security, where your effort should go on. And I think this is really handy, especially for organizations looking to expand teams or purchase new software to, or getting like security assessments done on their environments. Around where the focus should go and what they should target as part of, say, their annual assurance plan or annual testing plan. I think this is really handy, especially for agencies looking for this information and looking to get people to get KPIs out of their environment and report it back to senior management to be like, hey, what should we invest on? Why? And this will immensely help the someone like a SOC manager or even an assurance manager or a CISO, where they should focus.
100%. And, that's traditionally the big struggle with organizations, right? Like, I've got all these things that I need to remediate, but where do I begin? How do I remediate it? And what areas of, my security capability, identity, cloud, the different domains, endpoints, what's suffering the most and what needs the most attention. And this provides all that evidence where, you have your security resources that can essentially try and enhance, remediate, and fix a lot of those issues in your environment. And this will lead the way for XDR as this becomes more and more mature. There's data connectors, so you can add, there's a few data connectors that are available, but you can also request Microsoft to build more as well. And I know monthly that they're releasing more and more and more. So you can add in platforms like AWS or Oracle or Google or Salesforce all into here. And it will pump out more recommendations based on those, the security capabilities in those spaces. And you'll have a single pane of glass view for that in here. So this will only get better as time goes on.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I'm pretty sure a lot of us have never seen how the Defender portal looks as of now. We might have seen how it looked like a year ago, but it's great to see a lot of changes. And how do you keep up with Microsoft always changing the names of their services and products and moving things around? How do you keep up to date with that stuff?
The best way that I've found is to use it, but also getting involved into the community, right? The Microsoft Preview community gives you a huge amount of upcoming changes and even current changes that they're implementing. Talking to other Microsoft engineers, Microsoft have a hugely rich environment. Like, they've got massive forums. Getting involved in there, asking questions. There's no silly question. So you can ask almost anything in there. People will help you. Getting involved in some of the community, some of the other communities out there, like, New Zealand has a huge amount of groups and sort of community-based Microsoft specialists out there. There's weekly or monthly meetups, groups like Liquid IT, and people around host a bunch of things. Like get out there and meet people. That's the best way I've kind of kept up with all the changes, is just being amongst it, and I totally encourage that for anyone else.
And we talked about what good looks like in terms of a good SOC practice. I think we could talk from your perspective what you think a modern day SOC looks like, because obviously, as you mentioned, SIEM will eventually get out of fashion, and it is moving towards that XDR first approach. So, how would you summarize, for someone looking to establish a good SOC practice, or someone trying to learn what good looks like in terms of having a good SOC team, having a good blue team? How does that look in your lens?
So yeah, SOC. I guess the best model I've seen is, it really depends on the size of the organization. The best approach I've seen is having dedicated people to their areas. So a person for SOC, for security, I guess for SIEM monitoring, or a person for threat intelligence, a person for vulnerability management, a person for even third party access, and vendor management. If your team is small, say you only have like 5 or 6 people in it, have people that are dedicated to those specializations, because you'll have a richer security environment because of it. Because they're so much more effective to co-share information. If you have a more generalist approach, which I've seen, you'll miss out some of the core capability that you're just not doing because you can't keep up. You sort of have to have people that are dedicated in their spaces to do the jobs that they do best. Like a threat intelligence analyst will, discover new threats the organization needs to see. A security monitoring analyst will, they'll hunt and discover new threats. Vulnerability management, person will prioritize vulnerabilities and what needs to be fixed, first. That's probably the best way to go. But I've seen it work in a multiple different ways. And I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to resource and what you're wanting to get out of your security capability. Like there's nothing that kind of fits, everyone. At least try to cover the main areas, and then whatever's left over, you try and cover that too, I guess. So yeah, that's probably I guess the key message for people.
In terms of tooling, would you suggest go the old traditional SIEM path, or look towards XDR, because that's where the world's going?
Yeah, well, this is a debate, right? It's a conversation. The rest of the world's kind of moving to XDR because it's automated to a point, and there's significant cost savings going down that approach. But SIEM also plays a part too, and I believe you kind of need both, but you need both in a way where it's balanced. You shouldn't be leveraging one more than the other. XDR plays a part, and then Sentinel, SIEM, I should say, plays a part as well. So SIEM will monitor for things that XDR can't, and I think you need both to complete the sort of your security capability. So I guess the key message for people is use both in an intelligent way. When it comes to SIEM, don't ingest everything. Ingest what you need, what needs to be in there, not what you want to be in there. SIEM is not an everything tool. It can't fix everything. It's not built for that. It won't fix your vulnerabilities. Just because you ingest logs into SIEM that says this is vulnerable, it won't fix it. Use your SIEM for the use cases where XDR just can't fill. That's probably the best message I can send to people, especially with the Microsoft security stack. Don't waste your money on it.
That is awesome. Well, since you've worked across New Zealand organizations. Are you aware of some of the common pitfalls that you've seen in agencies making the same mistakes that you just mentioned throughout your career, and any sort of trends you're seeing right now?
So trends really comes down to the size of organization. I've seen kind of everything really. There's no magic bullet for this. I mean, what works with one organization may not work with another. I guess the biggest takeaway that I have for a lot of people is make sure you have a plan and make sure you know how you're going to structure your security capability properly. I think that's the biggest takeaway for people out there. I've seen it done well. I've seen it done poorly. I've seen people that have spent too much money, and I've seen people that haven't spent enough. So, spend well. When it comes to spending, like there's no magic number for security, right? Find the value that you want. Find that. Try and find the value. Or try and find the. Try and build your security capability where you get the most value out of it. Is probably the best message I can send to people. It's all well and good to say I've spent X number of $1 million on a security capability, but if you're not getting value out of it, what's the point? You're just spending money for the sake of spending money. But not even that. Find the areas that needs to be invested in first, and then start with that. I guess, yeah. There's no right answer for this.
Yeah, it is a very difficult question to answer from, like, I guess, a generalistic point of view, but you've done well in terms of structuring that. I think to finish it off, I guess, what are some of your tips for, a young person watching this podcast, wanting to be like you, Bill, wanting to explore the Microsoft security stack and the security landscape in general? What are some of the key things that you want to convey to that person? And yeah, some of your key tips and tricks that you've learned, throughout your career.
Exposure is a massive one. Try and get exposure. That's the big thing for a lot of people, especially as a junior. You may not get exposure to everything that you want, and it's hard. I know that being junior people, it can be really hard. I encourage my peers to at least mentor and upskill more juniors, because we need them. We definitely need them. There's such a massive shortfall in this space, and it's not going away anytime soon. So for anyone coming into the industry, try and build relationships. Try and talk to people that are in a more senior position. Try and get a mentor. Try and get into communities, and that's really important. Wherever you may be, here in New Zealand, Australia, wherever, try and get into those communities. And there's plenty of them out there. You can find them on Discord. There's IT Professionals New Zealand. You can reach out to Microsoft as well directly. There's forums. There's engineers that are around. There's a lot of helpful people out there that will help juniors try to develop. Key message is probably, build those relationships and try and get exposure within the companies that you are in those spaces. So those are probably the biggest two takeaways that I'd give advice to.
Awesome. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you in the SecAsh show, Bill. I really appreciate your time, and I'm hoping that we can probably do another one based on another set of Microsoft products, or anything else that you think would be beneficial to share with the community.
100%.
But absolutely been a pleasure, Bill. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll hopefully see you again as a follow-up guest.
Definitely.
Cheers, awesome. Mate. Cheers, Bill. See ya.